Hi everyone. Welcome back. Good morning. Today we are on chapter 6 of our Read Aloud. So again, just a reminder, we're reading the book Refugee. Signpost along and send me pictures of the signpost for extra credit. And then where we're at on chapter 6 is we're going back to Mahmoud's story. So Mahmoud, out of the three protagonists, the three heroes in the story, Mahmoud is the most current story. He lives in Aleppo, Syria in 2015. So even right now, today, the Syrian civil war is still going on and has claimed the lives of a lot of people. So this is Mahmoud's story. And the first time we met Mahmoud, he was going home from school with his younger brother, and um, he was remembering seeing one of his friends get beat up, and they stumble upon another boy getting beat up for like his food and his belongings, and he doesn't do anything, and he feels a little bit guilty that he doesn't do anything, but it's, the reflection on the war is clear. His goal is to remain invisible because invisible may mean safe. All right, here we go. Oh, you see the happy birthday sign. My daughter's birthday is this week. So yeah, she will be officially an 8-year old, which is like big time kid, which I'm like, slow down. All right. Mahmoud, Aleppo, Syria, 2015. The afternoon adhan from a nearby mosque. So remember, mosque is like the equivalent of a church for people of the Muslim faith. By a nearby mosque echoed through the bomb out streets of Aleppo the melodious ethereal voice of the Mujahideen, praising Allah and calling everyone to prayer. So we can do our first signpost with the word Mujahideen. So my finger is on it. So it's the italicized font to show that this is actually Arabic. And what this is in Islamic countries, they have a person who goes in a really tall building with this speaker system, and they do this calling to prayer, and then everyone, wherever they're at, they might either be at the mosque or even in their homes or even out in the market, will unroll their prayer mats and point them in the right direction, and the whole community will do their prayer together. So praising Allah and coming. So the author is using this because we are learning. It's like a signal to the reader to emphasize that it's a different word, and it gives us an opportunity to not only learn a new word in a different language, but also to learn a new thing about their culture. Mahmoud had been doing his math homework at the kitchen table, but he automatically put his pencil down and went to the sink to wash up. The water wasn't working again, so he had poured some water over his hands using the plastic jugs his mother had hauled from the neighborhood well. Across the street, Walid sat like a zombie in front of the television watching a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon dubbed into Syrian Arabic. Mahmoud's mother came out of the bedroom where she had been folding clothes and turned off the TV. Time to pray, Walid. Get washed up. Mahmoud's mother, Fatima Bishara, held her pink iPhone in one hand, and her free arm she carried Mahmoud's baby sister, Hannah. Fatima had long, dark hair she wore up on her head and intense brown eyes. Today she was wearing her usual around-the-house attire, jeans, and a pink nurse's shirt she used to wear to work. She'd quit the hospital when Hannah was born, but not before the war had begun. Not before coming home every day with horror stories about the people she helped put back together. Not soldiers, regular people. Men with gunshot wounds, women with burns, children with missing limbs. She hadn't gone nearly catatonic like Walid, but she had at some point had gotten so bad that she just stopped talking about it. When he was finished washing up, Mahmoud went to the corner of the living room that faced Mecca. He rolled out two mats, one for him and the other one for Walid. Their mother would pray by herself in her bedroom. Mahmoud began without Walid. He raised his hands to his ears and said, Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest. Then he folded his hands over his stomach and said a brief prayer before reciting the first chapter of the Quran, the most holy book in Islam. He bowed and praised Allah again 3 times, stood and praised Allah again, then got down on his hands and knees and put his head to the floor, praising Allah 3 more times. When he was finished, Mahmoud sat back up on his knees and ended his prayer by turning his head right and then left, recognizing the angels who recorded his good and bad deeds. The whole prayer took Mahmoud about 7 minutes. While he had been praying, Walid had joined him. Mahmoud waited for his brother to finish, then rolled up their mats and went back to homework. Walid went back to watching cartoons. Mahmoud was just starting a new equation when he heard the sound over Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme song, the roar like a hot wind rising outside. In the second it took for the sound to grow from a breeze to a tornado, Mahmoud dropped his pencil, put his hands to his ears, and threw himself under the kitchen table. By now he knew what an incoming missile sounded like. Shoo! Boom! The sound of his apartment exploded, blasting floor bits of concrete and glass through the room. The floor lurched under Mahmoud and through him, and the table and chairs back against the wall of the kitchen. The world was a whirlwind of bricks and broken dishes and table legs and heat, and Mahmoud slammed it into a cabinet. His breath left him all at once, and he fell to the floor with a heavy thud and the heap of metal and mortar. Mahmoud's eyes rang with a high-pierced whine, like the TV when the satellite was searching for a signal. Above him, what was left of the ceiling light threw sparks. Nothing else mattered in that moment but air. Mahmoud couldn't draw a breath. It was like someone was sitting on his chest. He thrashed in the rubble, panicking. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't breathe. He flailed wildly at the debris, digging and scratching at the wreckage, like he could somehow claw his way back to a place where there was air. And then his lungs were working again, raking in great gulps. The air was full of dust, and it scratched and tore at his throat as it went down, but Mahmoud had never tasted anything so sweet. His ears still rang, but through the buzz he could hear more thuds and booms. It wasn't just his building that had been hit, he realized. It was his whole neighborhood. So we have an aha moment with he realized as our signal word. So the quote is, it wasn't just his building that had been hit, he realized. It had been the whole neighborhood. It wasn't just his building that had been hit, he realized it was his whole neighborhood. So this is an aha moment that shows us the amount of devastation that just happened in his life. That, not only his building was targeted, but he knows his whole neighborhood, right? Like blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks have just been bombed. It's a hard book. Mahmoud's head was hot and wet. He put a hand to it and came away with blood. His shoulders ached and his chest still seared with every hard, desperate breath. But the only thing that mattered now was getting to his mother and his sister and his brother. Mahmoud pulled himself up out of the rubble and saw the building across the street in raw daylight, like he was standing in mid-air beside it. He blinked, still dazed, and then he understood. The entire outside wall of Mahmoud's apartment was gone. So you can look up pictures. If you look up pictures of the Syrian civil war and Google image it, one thing that you'll see is you'll actually see these buildings that are still intact, but the whole fronts have been ripped off. And, and what you'll see is the inside of people's homes, their apartments, obviously it's a jumbled heap. And then what happens is a lot of people stay there. If they don't have any options to run away and become refugees, they move from building, like destroyed building to destroyed building, living inside, hoping that it won't get targeted again. But of course, it will get targeted again because the government, the Syrian government, knows that people are trying to be safe in there, and they bomb them because they think also rebels are in there. Everyone, I appreciate your dedication in reading this book with me. I know what we're hearing is not easy stories, and I think it's important to listen to hard stories, right? In fact, I think more of us, especially people like me, need to listen to hard stories of people not like them. I mean, we're all human beings, and there are so many things that have similarities, but there are also things that certain people have experienced that are far harder than others. And listening to these stories kind of build a common humanity. I may not have experienced this, but by hearing their voice and their story, I show them that I care, and it builds compassion and empathy in me, and also builds perspective of the plight of others. We have to do this work. We can't just live in this world of everything is shiny and everything looks good. All right. I miss you all. I'll see you tomorrow.